Hello and welcome. I'm Patrick Curtis, your host and chief monkey, and this is the Wall Street Oasis Podcast. Join me as I talk to some of the community's most successful and inspirational members to gain valuable insight into different career paths and life in general. Let's get to it. Really fun session this week with the interns where we discuss everything from the master's in finance versus an MBA, the CFA versus financial modeling training, and everything in between. Hope you enjoy. Hey, everybody. Welcome to, I think it's the fourth weekly call with the intern group. We will probably still have people kind of trickling in as it goes. So apologies if I'm distracted. Nabil is also on vacation this week, so it's just going to be me hosting this. Again, I want to remind everybody that, this is just an open call for any questions you have. It doesn't just have to be about the internship itself, although I'm very happy to answer questions about that. If some of you are just starting or have hit roadblocks or just have questions about it, of course, feel free to fire away and ask questions on that. I think in terms of how we typically do this, I just wanted to open it up first and just see if anybody has questions specifically about the internship or starting there. And you can either use the raise your hand feature, or you can just go ahead and chime in. You can go ahead and chime in when you're ready. And if you can keep yourself on mute when you're not talking, that would be great. But welcome. And any questions to start? Anybody have questions around the program itself, specifically how to use it on a resume? I hope people in the group saw that we've made some changes to the internship guide to hopefully make the step-by-step process of how to get started a little bit more clear. So if you haven't seen that, definitely check that out. We have the how to start video up there for people who are looking for kind of more of an example of how to write about a specific research and write about a specific article. And then, I think those are the major changes we've made this past week. Oh, we also have up there for people that haven't seen it, an example of how to include this internship on your resume and on your CV to make it look good so that it helps you land more interviews. So with that, any questions from the group right now about the internship in general or specific? Nobody? Anybody? Okay. Well, if you do have questions, we can go back. Oh, okay. Here we go. We have one question, and you can also write your questions in the chat if it's easier. I don't want to say your name wrong. Is it Kaustubh?
Yeah, Kaustubh it is.
Kaustubh, how are you? Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I'm fine. What about you?
I'm great.
So my question is what do you expect? In how much time we can complete one module or the article? What is your expectation from us?
The expectations, what Nabil would always say is the quality matters more than the quantity, especially early on. What we're seeing in terms of how long it takes for an article, if it's a shorter one, usually with, around 2-ish hours. If it's a longer one, usually on the upper bounds, it's, 5 hours, although we've seen 7 hours, especially for the first article or two. And then, so, I'd say usually between 2 to 7 hours range. Although, as long as you're, being efficient and you're doing the research and you're writing and you're doing your best, I think that's what's more important, is that there's quality there rather than trying to rush through and get as many articles as you can out.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Hopefully that's helpful. Any other questions specific to the internship? CT or CT? I don't know how to say your name.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. And I wonder, could you send the process of the internship to us, or maybe we can have some written document of the how to process the internship?
Yep. So it's all in the top of the Slack group. I put it in the chat right now. That's the main internship guide. And I'm going to link you.
Okay, thank you.
Also to a video to watch, which shows kind of how to start. That's also in the chat. So feel free.
The start date is from when? Just
the start date is from whatever date you put in the form when you initially applied.
Okay, and will we be reminded
Yes.
from your email.
Yeah, you will be reminded. I think 2 days prior, you'll be reminded to make sure you're signed up through Hubstaff.
Okay.
And so that you can track your time and get credit for all the hours you're putting in. We're still having people trickle in. It's getting big. The group's getting big, which is great to see. Yeah, so if there's any other questions, so I put in the chat the link to the general internship guide and the how to start video. That'll really give you a much better feel of like where you even begin, because I know early on it can be a little bit overwhelming. We even modified the internship guide to have, there's a page like 3 or 4 pages, and it's like step 1, step 2, step 3. You can just follow step by step what you need to do in order to get started on your first article. Welcome, Jubair, Ronak, Shivam, Ahmed. You guys have any questions specifically about the internship? Christian, welcome. Dennis, Arveen. Hey, Jacob, good to see you. Joju. Hey, everybody. Hi, go ahead, Alma.
Yeah, I just have some career-related questions.
Yeah, shoot, go for it.
I thought about the investment banking division, specifically the industry group. Are there any industry-specific, specialized groups like biotech in the healthcare industry group, or the analysts work on different healthcare companies?
It's a good question. You mean within specific firms? Are there?
Yeah, can I like specialize in the specific sub-industry like biotech or pharmaceutical?
You can, although I wouldn't advise. Are you in university right now?
I've just graduated recently.
Can you tell me where you are and like your situation a little bit more?
I'm from Almaty, from Kazakhstan.
Yes. Go ahead.
I've recently graduated in 3 years, and I participate in different internships, specifically like CFA Research Challenge and other related programs.
Yep.
Like equity research related internships.
So your question is, can you be specifically specialize in biotech underneath healthcare?
Just like in biotech or in any other industry, like specific sub-industry.
You can. You absolutely can. I wouldn't recommend that for your first job, only because it's limiting the number of places you maybe apply to and the people you talk to. And I think a lot of the concepts you learn early on can be applicable to all different divisions. And I think that would happen usually in your group placement, but you don't want to necessarily in a job market or in a place where it's really hard to even get the entry level role. You don't want to necessarily limit yourself to only looking at like biotech. I mean, it's one thing to say healthcare, but it's another thing to say biotech under healthcare. That's very narrow, and there's probably not that many. There's not as many opportunities. And so I wouldn't want to limit yourself, even if that's like your true passion and what you want to do long term. I would say first get in to work at an investment bank, get your analyst years under you, then you become much more marketable, and you can say, really, I'm passionate about biotech. I want to transition to a healthcare group, and that's infinitely easier than breaking in initially. So initially, if you're trying to break in and get that first job out of school, you should be casting a very wide net. And not even outside of investment banking, because if you're not getting a job, if you're graduated and you don't have a job, like that's already a very uphill battle that you're facing. So I wouldn't limit yourself at all. I would be looking at outside of investment banking. I'd be looking at corporate finance positions. I'd be looking at Big Four transaction advisory services, which are very well
specifically related to Big Four. Also, one more question.
Yep.
Would you suggest the valuation and transaction advisory department? For example, Absolutely. If I work here in Almaty and transfer to the US?
Yeah, US or UK. Yeah, absolutely. It's a very well-known path to banking, especially recently with all the attrition problems. They're losing a lot of bankers. Second-year analysts are leaving for private equity or just leaving the industry altogether. So there's a huge demand to fill those seats. And usually they look to the Big Four transaction advisory services as one of the places that banks pull from. It's no longer a secret. It used to be a secret for lots of banks, but everyone's pulling from there now. So it's a great place to be if you can. If you don't get into banking right out of school, it's an awesome place to be because it's basically like it's like a half step toward banking. If that makes sense.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries. You should definitely apply to those, especially if you've already graduated. It's a no-brainer. If you can get that job, it's a great job. Here we go. Harveen says, can you please tell me which topics I should research on from the sheet if I want to become an investment banker? Good question, Harveen. So, there's a lot of topics obviously in the sheet, so it can be a little overwhelming, but I would do topics that are going to give you like the buzzwords on your resume that you want to be an investment banker. So probably things around like valuation, discounted cash flow, precedent transactions, comps, financial modeling type keywords, maybe keywords that have investment banking in them, anything. I mean, investment banking is a very broad topic. So there's like probably 500 plus articles in there just around related terms to investment banking. I mean, you could do much more kind of economic based ones like, GDP and, marginal cost, all these things related to financial statements, related to depreciation, working capital, all these things matter because they're all integrated into finance. So accounting even, to show that you have that kind of framework. Now, if you were an accounting major, maybe you want to supplement with a little more like corporate finance type terms to round yourself out. So if like you were an accounting major, I would tell you like, don't just do accounting terms, even though you're probably going to write, those are going to be easier for you. Also try to sprinkle in some of the stuff that's going to be seen as kind of more rounding out your CV. So, Harvey, not sure if that answers your question. So I would say valuation type topics, the finance topics like skills, definitional stuff, maybe around some of like the filings like 10K, 10Q, 14F, 583, knowing all these like M&A type term, mergers and acquisitions. If you're interested in that, there's a bunch of terms around that and like deal making and stuff like that. So those would be good too. Here we go. Ritik says, hello, sir. I'm starting my internship from the 1st of May. So when will I get the further information of the process starting? The 1st of May, you'll probably get an email 2 days prior. So near the end, probably in about a week, Ritik, right before your start date, about 2 or 3 days. If your start date hits, you haven't heard from us, you can always reach out to Nabil in the Slack group. He's on vacation this week, but he'll definitely be back by the time you start. So yeah, you'll be getting emails kind of a couple of days prior, and then once the day you start, and then emails as well, kind of especially that first few weeks to help kind of make sure you're off to a good start and understand the process. But I encourage you to look, if you're in the Slack group already, I encourage you to look through the internship guide prior to your start date and the how to start video, so you feel a little bit more ready to go. Let's see, some more messages here. Jubed says, hi, Patrick. Hi, Jubed.
Patrick, can you hear me by any chance?
I can hear you great.
Oh, that's perfectly fine. I've just got a question. I applied so that I could pretty much work in the summer because currently I'm on an internship as a financial audit. I've always had this mental career ladder in my head for the past few, let's say 6 months, of where I want to get into. And obviously I don't have huge dreams such as getting into investment banking because I don't want to pretty much sell my soul for a job. So yeah, I want to get into corporate finance, though, more specifically mergers and acquisitions. And of course, I've been looking at LinkedIn and how individuals got into mergers and acquisitions, and audit's always been a core foundation of where they've pretty much worked as an audit to gain their qualification and then pretty much transfer themselves to corporate finance. But I'm lucky in the sense that I'm working as an audit as my placement year, as my internship. So rather than, dedicating 3 years of my life towards audit just to gain a qualification, I can pretty much use this internship as a stepping stone towards corporate finance.
Yeah, when you say corporate finance, you got to be a little bit careful. I think you mean like, terms are somewhat interchangeable, but do you mean like corporate development, like actually doing internal M&A for a company? Or do you mean like corporate finance, like working like with the CFO to help with like strategy and like FP&A internally?
As in just pretty much working in the corporate finance department for the top four, if you know what I'm trying to say. So how EY have the division called strategy and transactions or transaction services.
Yeah.
PwC.
Okay. Absolutely. A transaction advisory services. So usually people are going to those groups because they want to get to investment banking because the pay is much better, even though the work, and I'll tell you why people want to make that jump, because the work is very similar. The hours at the Big Four are actually not that much better. It's still pretty rough in transaction advisory services, and the pay is almost double in banking.
Yeah.
So I get the idea of not wanting to like sell your soul and work 100-hour weeks, but there are investment banks that aren't as rigorous. They have, you know, larger junior staff, or they respect your time more. So I'd be careful to think that corporate finance is an easier path or more interesting path, because I think what investment banking does is it actually sets you up really nicely for a whole variety of exit opportunities. So not just corporate finance, but corporate development, like in-house M&A for firms, for large firms. You could do buy side private equity work. You could just go work for a CFO. You could be a chief of staff for a smaller startup, help with that type of stuff. So it just leaves you a lot of options. But at the same time, transaction advisory services are giving you a lot of those same skills. So like valuation, doing all this stuff. So it's a great place to be. I'll just say it's still a lot of work. Like they still work you pretty hard there.
Yeah, I understand. But one of the main reasons why I want to get into the top four is because I don't necessarily need to move into London to work for investment banks. And of course, a lot of investment banks are pretty much situated inside London. So I don't want to, you know, struggle to live while at the same time, you know, working hours upon hours. So right now I'm based in Birmingham, and literally there's about 6 to 7 major accountancy firms or financial service firms in Birmingham. So it's much more easier for me to commute and also live.
You want to stay close to home is what I'm hearing.
Pretty much, and also not struggle to, you know, pay for my expenses, or because of course the rent prices in London is just absolutely crazy.
Insane. But yeah, so you're very young. What I would say to you is what you're making early in your career is much less important to the experience you're building on your resume. So don't make the short-sighted thing of like, oh my gosh, the rent's so crazy, so I shouldn't go to London. If they're paying you really well, you know, and London doesn't pay as well as New York, but if they're paying you well to be able to cover your rent and you're getting that experience, think of your career as like the long term, right? So you talked about mapping your career. Think about like the best, you're going to have the most energy ever when you graduate, when you're young. Think about the sacrifices you can make early to eventually have a lot more freedom. And I'm not talking about like you're going to make so much money in a year or two, because you're not going to be able to save it that much, like you implied, but just the option value and the signal you're going to be getting from putting that on your CV of like, I worked in London at a bank, even if it's not a top bank. I worked in London at an investment bank. Blah, blah, blah. It's going to open up a lot more doors for you, I'd suspect. But that doesn't mean you have to do that. If there's reasons you need to be home, close to home, for family, there's, like you said, in Birmingham, there's plenty of good jobs as well. It's not for everybody. So I'm just saying that to just think about it, because sometimes people look at investment banking and they say it's so horrible because it's this crazy thing. But you are suffering, and it is long hours and it's brutal. But at the same time, it's also giving you a lot on the back end. And I'd say the pendulum has swung so far that now they're paying analysts an incredible amount to try and retain them, because they are so short-staffed. That's why it's opened up so much opportunity for people like yourself, or anybody who's in transaction advisory services, to kind of make that lateral move, work an incremental 5 hours a week and get paid almost double. I mean,
I've just got another question also.
Go ahead.
How common is it for an individual who's been working in transaction advisory for the top four to pretty much move to investment banking? Is there a common route that individuals take? Is it competitive also?
It's competitive, yeah, but it is very common, and becoming more commonplace, because the banks need the talent, and they know that transaction advisory services is probably the closest they can get to somebody who's going to be able to come in and immediately do the valuation work and not be lost and do the modeling.
Yeah. So, I feel like that transition is much more less competitive than a graduate who's pretty much applying for an investment bank. I don't mind taking the long route.
It
At the
is.
end of the day,
Yeah, it is more competitive. It is less competitive to get, but it's still not easy to get into those groups because people know that that's the path. So everybody that got rejected from investment banking, they're gunning for that group specifically in Big Four.
Okay.
So it's not, and there's a lot of really talented people there too from top schools.
Yeah.
So like you may go to a Big Four and they're going to be like, no, you can't get into TAS, or like you didn't place. And so I think you'd be surprised, like it's not that easy to get into those because of that reason. It's seen as like a kind of a stepping stone to banking.
Okay.
And you still have to perform. You still have to perform while you're there, right? This is not a, hey, I got into TAS and I'm going to get a banking offer next year, a year or two. You know, more like, hey, I got into TAS, or wow, I didn't get into TAS. I had to go work in audit for a year. I had to internally network like a genius. Finally was managed to do that internal conversation carefully enough not to get fired, not to piss off my audit partner, and get transferred over to TAS after a year of busting my ass with audit and showing that I'm a hard worker, right? So that internal transition, you should listen to some of the podcasts I've done with people who've done this before. If that's not easy to play that game and to get, if you don't get placed immediately in TAS, audit is much less competitive, right? And so you can get into audit. You still have to, now you have to make two jumps. You have to make the internal jump to TAS, and then you got to make the TAS jump to the bank. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Okay. But yeah, it's pretty well known path.
By the way, one more.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Alma.
Sorry, just one last question. What do you think about the credit rating and the corporate development as an alternative to Big Four? How attractive would be to transfer to IB from there?
Credit rating agencies?
Yeah, credit rating agencies and corporate development.
Corporate development, maybe more if you're going to a firm that is pretty active with M&A, and you're actually going to get deal reps, but you have to be careful because if you go to a corporate development group that's like doing one deal a year or one deal every few years, you're not going to get the transaction reps to kind of build those skills. Credit risk advisory shops, I'd say probably, I don't know as much. I don't want to say stay away from it, but it's a little bit less well known. I'm not exactly sure. Like you're getting some of the skills there, but it's a little bit less. I think it's a little bit more like siloed in terms of what you're doing there. So I'd probably lean more to the corporate development if you can get deal reps. Basically, you want to be able to go to anywhere where you can put actually like deals or engagements on your resume so that it looks like an investment banking resume. So even consultants trying to transition to banking, you always like, instead of putting like engagements or consulting arrangements, they put like transactions or deals. So it looks like a deal, and then they downplay the integration work they did, and they kind of emphasize the valuation work they did to try to make it look more in line with the job they're trying to land. That makes sense. So I think Jacob, you had a question.
Hey Patrick, how you doing?
Hey man, how you been?
Good. I think my question was, I'm curious what your personal opinion is on what separates a great article from something that's kind of okay or satisfactory.
Yeah, I think there's several kind of steps to a great article. Number one is just having like a really good framework and outline up front. So like the research you're doing in terms of like the header tags and the outline of it, I think is super important, because if you just start writing, it's going to be usually a winding, disorganized road. Whereas if you do the research and see kind of who's ranking well and why, and you kind of really look into what they're writing about, the examples they use, the visuals that they're using to help the reader kind of understand the concept. I think that's usually what makes it stand out. Now, some of it's just like writing quality as well. And, is the person a good writer? Are they engaging? Or are they overly formal? I think better usually just aim for engagement and keep the reader moving down the page, make sure the formatting is good, make sure the headers make sense logically. And I think that's usually what separates like an average article versus a great article. It's just organization, clarity, examples, and even formatting, just like visual, to help the reader. And that means like doing bullets, numbered lists. Like, don't give me these large chunks of text, because I don't know about you guys, but if I go to a page and there's like a whole wall of text on the screen, I'm going to bounce. I'm going to leave the page because it's just too hard on my eyes to be staring at this bright screen all day and read that. So I don't know if that's helpful, Jacob.
No, that's great. And that's been my experience too, is it can be kind of difficult to write. You get caught up in doing large paragraphs and then thinking about how can I reorganize this into bullet points so that it's easy on the reader.
Yeah. And so like, you'll notice like, and paragraphs aren't bad. Like you can get a lot of great communication. You can be a great writer and write beautifully, but this is not academic writing. This is writing for people trying to find most of these terms when they're searching, they're looking for an answer. They're looking to understand a concept. So it's really important that like you're breaking it down into pieces and you bring them down the page visually and in such a way that it's not overwhelming. And so I think, learning that's actually important in everything, in sales and marketing, copy and everything, and training and managing. And when we started this internship, I mean, just look at our training doc, we just revamped it last week because I was like to Nabil, I said, this is just too complicated, too confusing. I'm like, let's just break it 10 steps to start to help everybody kind of get going. So hopefully that'll be helpful for everybody. Still letting some people in here. We've got some late stragglers, but we'll keep going for a little while. Mirwas, you have a question? Oh, I think you muted yourself.
Yes, I have a question, Mr. Patrick. So what is the one big thing that lures you for investment? You are an investment banker, and there are many opportunities in here in Afghanistan. There are many opportunities for foreign investments. I mean, how can I lure foreign investors to invest in Afghanistan?
How can you lure investors to invest? Relationships, just building people, showing them real deals. And so like you're talking about like sourcing capital for bringing it into your country for specific deals. Yeah. So I think that comes with time. Like it's going to be really hard for you to do that. Do you have a track record of investing in deals locally?
Yes, I have that experience, but the local investments are not enough, and they're not just enough.
But have you invested locally in businesses that have done well?
Yes, but the bigger, I need bigger investments. For example, like mining, there are gold mines, silver mines, and other mines.
But so are these companies? So I think for you to attract international capital, you have to have like credibility. You have to be able to build relationships and build trust. So that comes with getting on phone calls with people. That comes with presenting something very professionally and showing returns of stuff you've done and showing opportunities in a way that's super convincing and compelling. So I'd encourage you to learn how to build a pitch deck really well and to explain the opportunities in such a way that's really compelling. Because if you project, you show them projections, you show them track record of other similar companies that have done well. You show valuation type work, and if you learn all of that stuff, that's kind of what you need to be able to convince people from, let's say, other countries to invest. Because most people are going to be very nervous from like a US to like put their money somewhere where they're not as knowledgeable. So you need to find investors that are a little bit more they have the risk tolerance for that. So
okay.
It's kind of it's two sides. It's not an easy thing to do, right? So you have to, number one, present the opportunities in a super compelling way, meaning like you need to get really good at PowerPoint and really good at presenting over the phone. You need to be willing to share your face, build trust, right? With people, like when you're on calls like this, not me in particular, I'm just saying in general, like when you get calls with people to discuss opportunities, you need to build that relationship. And then number two, you need to actually have a compelling enough deal lined up where people are going to feel like the risk reward makes sense.
Okay. And what about the business plans? Do they lure foreign investors? Do I have to create a business plan for the projects in here?
I would, yeah. I'd create a business plan and a model and all that stuff. Either way, that's going to help you get better. Just having that, even if you don't show all of it, having that in your back pocket is going to help you be more convincing. Like when a bank goes to pitch a specific deal or whatnot, they don't, or per a private equity fund or whatever, they're going to sell a company or try to get an investor. They don't go in with just like, oh, you should do this company. They have a model behind it. They have a beautiful PowerPoint deck. They go in with their suits and why are they putting on such a show? Why do you think they're putting on a show? Do you know?
I think to make them look smart.
Look smart. We're the right place to go with. You have to become the expert of a specific niche within your country. You need to know all the right relationship. You need to have all the right relationships within whatever niche, whether it's mining, maybe it's gold mines, maybe it's something else. Develop those relationships such that you're the connector, right?
Yes.
So it's a lot of work. It's not easy. It's not easy to do. But that's realistically what it takes. Abel, question for you.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello. Am I audible?
You are. Yeah, I can hear you.
Hi, Patrick. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing absolutely great. I just came back home. Sorry, I'm not turning on my video because I'm not in the proper form, and it's like around 12:30.
That's fine. Usually, I'm in sweatpants. I'm the only reason I had this on a sales call earlier, so it's the only reason I'm in a jacket.
Someone who's relatable. Okay. Okay. So I have a very ambiguous question. This is my first week in the internship, so it's going great. So I have my question is, I'm 24 years old now, and I want to break into banking. So I went to a top university in my country. So it's called Christ University. It's in India. But I was not very focused towards investment banking I just enjoyed college, to be honest. I'm going to be very...
You had too much fun. At least you're being honest.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that I didn't do stuff I did some research. I published some research, and I cleared a professional degree as well. But right now, when I talk to some people who are already in the field and, who are first year analysts and all, they told me that, you have to get into a target uni to break into the banking, especially in whatever country it is. So if it's in Europe and you have to go to LBS or LSE or Oxford, Cambridge. And so my question is do you think pursuing a CFA is better than doing a master's in finance, or do you think doing the master's in finance is better? Which one is more
master's
aligned?
In finance, for banking, master's in finance, that's easy.
Would you say that
CFA is more CFA you would want to do if you're really interested in staying in equity research, hedge fund, asset management type roles. So more market oriented roles.
So would you say that's for the front office roles more specifically?
Masters in finance, I think, would be more for banking front office roles. So it depends how you define front office, but revenue generating roles like M&A and that type of stuff, I'd say masters in finance is probably going
to stand out, right?
Probably going to be better, yeah, for you in terms of landing banking, especially if you can do it in London at an LSE. Okay, I'm actually having this exact same conversation with Nabil about what's the right strategy for him in terms of where to apply, because it's very expensive, right? Where to apply and I would look at really the placement stats for people who aren't citizens. Not the overall placement stats. No, the placement stats of people who are not citizens, because there are some visa issues and considerations you want to consider, and you want to make sure you're getting a full understanding of what the odds are for you before spending £50,000.
Oh my God, yeah. But then see what you said, I agree with you, because when I was talking to them, they told me that if you don't have a non-European passport, and it'll be a really big challenge to break into, especially in that country, even if you go to top tier uni. Another question I have is, what is the so if you're 24, is it better to get some work experience, not in investment banking? Obviously it will be hard, but would you advise I get some work experience in finance and then do an MBA to break into the associate role? Or should I do a master's in finance now to break into the analyst role? Do you get my question?
Yes, I get your question. You're 24. So what have you been doing since you graduated? When did you graduate?
I graduated in 2019. After that, I was pursuing CA. So it's called Chartered Accountancy. I cleared the level 2 of the exam. There's one more level left.
Okay.
And I got 720 on the GMAT.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my question. I also have 2 6-month internships as well in Qatar.
Okay. So It's not an easy question. It's not an easy question because it's kind of like timing, right? And it depends what you can actually get in these next few years. So if you can get a job at like a big four in transaction advisory services, like we just talked about, I don't know if you were on then.
Okay.
That's a pretty nice path. And then you don't even need the MBA or the master's finance.
Okay.
And you save yourself hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever. You save yourself a lot of money, but what I would say is if you're hitting a wall, the networking is not working, you're not getting interviews for whatever reason, that's when the MBA and the master's in finance, it's like a reset for you, a really nice brand on your CV, and it's going to get you into a lot of recruiting cycles for on campus. But I wouldn't go to an MBA that's like a 30th ranked MBA or 50th. Don't do it. I'm talking like you need to get into like a top 10 global MBA program.
Then for that, you have to work for a couple of years, right?
Usually you have to work for a few years. So like either way, you're probably going to need a job for the MBA. The master's in finance could work because it sounds like you have some work experience and you'd just be going into the analyst level, but I'd really want to know more details around the specific placement of international people coming into the UK. Cause like if it's 5%, 10%, it's not worth it. If it's 40, 50%, it might be worth the risk.
Okay, got it. That makes a lot of sense.
So try to push them to give you those stats.
For the universities?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a talk with, do you know IE Business School? Because I got admission in IE Business School and I don't know if it's a target uni. Because when I talk to the people.
I've heard of IE. Yeah, I've heard of IE. Yeah, they're pretty good.
It's a target uni.
Yeah, it's borderline. It's borderline.
It's borderline. Yeah, I know 50% say they don't get in and 50% say they have got the call. So yeah. Anyways, thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. We can talk more about it too next week too if you come on the call. Thanks for the questions. Okay, who has been? No worries. Christian, let's answer your question. I think you've been waiting with your hand up for a while.
Hello, Patrick. How's it going?
Hey, how are you? Where are you in the world?
We're in Vancouver, in British Columbia, in Canada.
Oh, beautiful! I love Vancouver.
Yeah, it's getting summer, so good climate, definitely. So, Patrick, I have two questions. Mm-hmm. The first one is related to the internship. So I was wondering are we able to add new concepts to the spreadsheet rather than picking a topic that's already pre-selected?
We can. We have allowed that in the past. I'd want it to clear it with Nabil first, though, before you start doing that. What we don't want is there to be conflicting articles, meaning there's like an article on XYZ and then you have like an article on like YZA or something like that. Because then you end up hurting the site in terms of like potentially competitive keywords.
So I believe I'm starting, I put in the survey, my start date would be like May 15th. So if I come up with some ideas, is it okay if I run them with you to see if I get approval? Perfect. So, and also a similar question would be, let's say I want to do some articles on financial modeling and somebody has already done something on DCF or trading comps, and I want to do something similar or at least an article that may enrich another one. Should I also run it by you?
Yeah, by Nabil. Nabil will tell you when he's back. He's on vacation. Okay. But yeah, by the time you start, we'll be ramping. We're gonna have probably a lot of people starting around then because of the summer, people getting out of school. So just try to be patient with him if he's not getting back to you right away, because it's a pretty big group now.
Sure, no worries. And one very last question: is there any advice you would give to, well, in my case, fourth year econ student who wants to get into asset management, more specifically roles as an investment analyst position in a buy-side traditional firm?
Like a Fidelity type role?
Yeah, Fidelity, Vanguard, or like BlackRock.
Have you started the CFA?
I actually signed up to it a few hours ago. So I'm planning to do it this summer. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a good step. That's a good step. If you're really interested in the markets and asset management and it does help kind of set you apart a little bit. But unfortunately it's not enough, right? You have to still do the networking, put in the groundwork. So yeah, I would say CFA is a good place to start. This internship's a good place because it just shows initiative. You can get those, if you're looking for those types of roles, I would almost focus more on like a little bit more on the economics and the trading side as well, like options and stuff like that.
Okay.
In terms of keyword, like if you're looking for those types of roles, I would focus.
Is there a specific section in the articles, in the spreadsheet, where I can find those stuff?
I got to look through it. I don't know how we hid some columns because it was confusing for people. Maybe I'll unhide a column that shows kind of like where the URLs are nested, but there's like sections that are like just trading, like trading terms, and there's other that are more like just economic terms. Then there's some that are like more just finance generic terms. So like you can look through there. But yeah, I wouldn't just do DCF and stuff like that. I would look at like options and anything around like asset management.
So is there a balance you would say, like I know of course modeling is a great deal for an investment analyst. So what weight would you put on concepts and modeling?
I mean, I think the free courses you're getting with the internship is probably enough on the modeling if you list them out properly. And so we have an example of how to do that on the CV. If you look at the top of the Slack group, are you part of the Slack group yet?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you look at the top there, there's a sample of like how to include it on your resume, this experience, and that has like a lot of the financial modeling stuff there on a bullet.
Right. And
so I would
for the courses, I was wondering, I know that one of the perks is that you are able to get off some free courses every once and then. Do you mind explaining how that works specifically?
Yeah. So if you, as you're kind of progressing and you're tracking your hours, every 25 hours, you can just send an email to ivy@wallstreetoasis.com and say which course you want access to, and she'll just grant you access automatically. Okay. So you go, if you're curious what courses you can ask for, you just go to the site, wallstreetoasis.com, and at the top, there's a link at the top main menu called courses. You can just click there and it'll show you all the courses that are available to you guys.
Okay, great. Thank you. And my very, very last question would be, as you know, I'm doing the CFA and this internship. Is there something you would advise to do something else in the summer as to assure or like land something in early 2023, like an internship?
You're what year?
I'm fourth year, but I'm actually graduating from with my degrees on December 2023 with a master's in management. So I still have a whole year of academics. However, I do have a big summer gap there in the beginning of the year. And I want
CFA is good. This internship CFA is really good. When can you sit for the level 1?
Sorry?
When can you sit for level 1?
I've scheduled my exam for August 2022.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, that'll be good. And then you'll finish school, right? And then from there, I think, you should be networking like a maniac kind of through that, and send me an email separately saying asset management, just in the subject. I'm going to put you in touch with one of my mentees who just recently started at Fidelity.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. Okay. And he maybe can talk to you about how he did it.
Okay.
We'll do. And they have a really good training program and all that stuff. So.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
No worries.
Appreciate it.
All right. Well, how about who's been waiting? Sorry, Giri?
Yeah. Hi, hey. Patrick. How are you?
Good. How are you? Where are you located today?
I'm in Leicester, UK.
Awesome. Cool.
I'm currently pursuing my master's in business analysis and finance, and I'm 20. So I completed my bachelor's last year, and I immediately joined my master's. And I'll be completing my master's in June. The courses will be completing in 3 months of dissertation.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to become a business analyst, and I really don't know what the next step should be, because while I was in India, everything was different, my whole thinking, and currently it's very different. And I've been applying to a lot of internships as well as the companies, but since I have no experience, and they don't want me first. So
this is why I always say go get experience after uni instead of going straight to master's. It's not fair, because in Europe it's much more common to do that. People go straight through the master's. I see the master's as a huge ability to reset and have a chance to like change gears and pivot. But you're here, right? This is the situation you're in. So I think at this point, so you said business analyst. Explain that more specifically. What do you and explain your degree? You said your dissertation. So is it a PhD?
Called as the business analyst in finance, but the modules and the concepts we have totally on financial modeling, risk management, corporate finance, economics of organization. It's totally about economics and finance.
Got it. Okay. So what type of roles are you applying to?
I interested in of being a business analyst and a financial analyst.
So like FP&A specific roles in the firms? Are you looking at like, what are you doing day to day in the business? Because business analyst, it's a pretty vague term. It can mean different things in different companies. So like day to day, what would you be doing?
Like you're helping a business, which is to be in my field.
To be in your field? To be in your field?
Maybe it may be in financial analyst or in auditing.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, so I would say that's those are all pretty different. So like, I think where you might get more, like if you're doing FP&A or you're doing like risk, like it seems like your schooling may be very, very theoretical. That's why
it's problematic, mathematical.
It's mathematical. Okay. It's mathematical. I don't know, mathematical theory, but it's not, is it specific to like how you're going to help the company, right? So you just switch your mindset of like, I have these skills, and instead switch it to like, and look, I have all this impressive academic credentials, to how can I specifically help the company, and what specific role can these skills map to best, right?
Okay.
So like, just think of it a little bit differently. So when you're applying to a business analyst role, think of what the day-to-day actually is and why your analytical mind is going to be so much better than the other candidates. And that's how, have you been landing interviews?
Interviews.
Have you been getting interviews?
No, not yet.
Have you been applying?
Yeah.
How many?
I've been applying to companies directly.
How many?
It's more than 10.
10? Okay, yeah, you need to apply to like 300.
300, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Because 10, so how many interviews did you get out of that 10? 0 or 1?
I went for 2 interviews.
Okay, that's good. So people like your background if you got 2 interviews.
I just have some good scores during my bachelor's. So I just went for 2 interviews, but like they compared with myself and with the other employees, and they said they have experience and are the most toughs. And unfortunately, this is not the moment for you.
Okay. So was that like a first round interview or a second or third round interview? First round. Okay. So what I would say to you is you need to have your story like down in terms of like, at this point, you're getting closer to graduating. At this point, it should be like you're willing to take entry level, you're willing to work for very little, anything to kind of just get your foot in the door and get that experience in your resume. Because what you don't want is to graduate and have a huge gap.
Yeah.
Right. So at this stage, I would increase the number of places you're applying to. I'd 10x it. Sure. I would also very specifically work on why you feel the skills you developed at school are very specifically beneficial for the role you're applying to.
Yeah. Okay.
And say it like you mean it when you're in the interview and be confident with it. I think people can sense if you're, not passionate or not, don't feel genuine about it or don't believe in yourself. So just feel like obviously you're academically pretty gifted. So you're going to get interviews. So now it's important that you come across as genuine and likable in the interview.
Sure.
That's not easy, right?
Yeah. Because like in India, I have just a concept. Okay, I'm going to do the master's. Okay, I'm going to get inside. But here, the current situation, everything is different.
What do you mean by that?
Really, I'm doing what I expected is even my part-time work, it should be relevant to my stream. I should not do anything apart from that. But the competitors here is really high, really high.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And so like you should
put more than my effort. I need to really do something different from others so that I can stand
out. Exactly. Yeah. So, and that can be, but more importantly, you land something that's somewhat related. You can always keep recruiting.
Yeah.
When you land the first job, but you don't want to be out with nothing. So better to have something, even if it's not the perfect match to your skill set, or even if you feel like you're being underutilized or you're not being, better to have something to build that CV. Because that's the most important thing right now, is making sure your CV doesn't look.
I've been in this internship for the last week, and it's really been very helpful because some concepts I don't know, but when I get inside, it's just on the flow. I try to learn like new stuff. So, okay, I'm covering some concepts.
Yeah, it's great. No, I think if you leverage it too, I think it'll help open a lot of doors. People get curious when they see Wall Street Oasis. They want to ask about it, and you land more interviews because of it. So that's good. But I would start applying to a lot more jobs, anything relevant at all to what you're studying, business analyst roles. But then, when you land the interviews, make sure you're prepping beforehand for many hours. Record yourself in the mirror, talking, delivering why this company, why this industry, why this role.
Okay.
Those specific questions, because first round interviews, it's usually that.
Sure. So another one question. Do you think just the LinkedIn is the only platform, or apart from LinkedIn, Indeed, is there any ways to get inside companies or to apply for that, or directly going inside the particular website?
Directly to the companies is better usually, but LinkedIn is good. But ideally, you're talking to somebody when you apply somewhere, when you submit your CV, you don't just leave it there. You actually message people in there and try to get on a phone call with them informally with a coffee chat to talk about the role and blah, blah, blah. I'd be like, just want to let you know I applied. I saw your background. It looks really interesting. I saw you also studied similar, blah, blah, blah. So you should look at people who have a similar degree to you, the same degree, and are in the roles you want to be in.
What?
You should be looking for people that have the same degree or similar degree to you. From the same, even similar degree, and just kind of try to make that connection to see if you can get on the phone with them and ask them how they had so much success.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Thank you so much.
Good luck.
Helpful.
Keep us updated.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Emmett, I think I might have to go in a few minutes, guys. I have another call coming up in 5 minutes, but let's keep it going. So we're coming up on an hour. So, but Emmett, let's hear your question if you're still there or have the question.
Still here. Hi, Patrick. How are you?
Hey, how are you? Where are you located?
I'm normally located in Ireland. I'm based in Dublin, but I'm on holidays at the moment in France. Our college is still actually running a hybrid learning at the moment. So I've kind of finished all my college roles. I can still kind of learn online. So just taking a few weeks out just to go abroad and enjoy some sunshine.
Beautiful. Love it.
So my question is, so I'm in the kind of fortunate position where I had a really good interview today, a good kind of first and final round interview for a corporate finance M&A group in Ireland. They'd be one of the biggest, they've kind of done deals around the 100 million mark. And I think they did one 11 billion a few years ago, but they definitely be one of the biggest.
This is an investment bank, like sell side?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. And I also have a final round interview with a private equity firm, much smaller, maybe 100 million assets under management. But the thing is, so I think I prefer to, assuming I was to get offers for both of them, I think I prefer to take the first one. My ideal role would be investment banking. So I don't know, you might agree with that. I'm not sure. But
I don't know the track record of the private equity fund, or if it's a new fund. Is it a new fund?
They're maybe 5 or so years old. Okay. I think private equity is a very, very kind of small industry in Ireland at the moment anyway.
Yeah.
It's kind of growing a little bit due to Brexit, but it's still very, very, very young. But
you can't go wrong with the banking role. You can't go wrong with either, to be honest, because you're going to get good experience. I would love it if you could do an internship in both before you graduate.
So I've been trying to ask around a few places. So let's say if they were both to give me an offer, I would try and say, look, I'm really sorry, to whoever I don't go with, I'm really sorry, but if you do need someone over the summer, I'm willing to help for 3 or so months, even if you can only offer a stipend in terms of pay or something like that. Again, it's about experience.
I would do it. Yeah, I would do it. If you could do like 3 months there. So you're saying, but don't you graduate? I'm looking at your LinkedIn. Don't you graduate like 24?
Yeah, so we have a placement year for a third year. So it's a 4-year course with that placement year.
Got it. So it's like a co-op here in the US, like you do a full year working and you go back?
Yeah.
Kind of same time. Okay, got it. Okay. Well, it's a tough decision. Yeah.
Well, that's assuming I get them both. I could get rejected and be twiddling my thumbs for a year. But I guess, I think I prefer to take the first one if I was offered it. In the case, but I feel like the private equity one, they, their application process is a little bit ahead of the schedule of the investment bank. If the situation arose where I got the offer from the private equity firm and, they gave me 2 days to take the offer or else they pass it up, should I reach out to the investment bank and say, hey, look?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, and that usually gets you the offer at the other place, just so you know. If you're borderline and you say, hey, I have another offer exploding at this, you'll quickly get an answer if they liked you. Okay, the offer's coming, and then you're fine. So yes, absolutely say that. If you can say, hey, I'd prefer to come with you guys, but I can't, turn this down. I have 2 days. So yeah, hopefully, and then try to say to the private equity fund, thank you so much. And, if they say like, you need to tell us in 24 hours, that's not ideal. Hopefully they're giving you at least 48 to 72 hours. But yeah, I would absolutely go to HR, the other one, and you do it respectfully, right? But as long as you're doing it respectfully, I think it's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Thanks for that. Also, one quick note. So I've listened to a bit of chat about the CFA. The private equity funds, they actually said they'd sponsor or subsidize some sort of formal training, and the one they recommended was the CFA. And when they kind of mentioned that in the interview, and I kind of said, well, I was thinking kind of more the CFI or some sort of financial modeling course, they all looked a bit shocked and like, oh, really?
That's odd. So yeah, I would tell them they should be sponsoring our private equity deals process course. That's very specific around PE. But yeah, I think unfortunately I got to go because I have a call right now. But I think that's surprising to hear the CFA because it's not a public market job. Maybe they just want you to like understand the basic concepts of like options and trading and economics and stuff like that and businesses. So like maybe it's just they respect it, so they're suggesting that. Because it's obviously a well-known credential. So, but usually that's pretty rare for banks or private equity funds to say like CFA.
Anyways, I won't hold you anymore. Thanks so much for your info.
Yeah, and thanks to everybody for joining this week. We'll be same time, same place next week. And this will be going up. We'll get out for all the people who can join, or if you want a recording of it, we'll send it around to everybody. So thanks everybody again for joining, and sorry I didn't get to everybody's question, but hopefully I will next week. Thank you.
And thanks to you, my listeners at Wall Street Oasis. If you have any suggestions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to send them my way, patrick@wallstreetoasis.com. And until next time.